Hello, I'm Samantha Simmons. You're watching The Context on BBC News. The UK sets out plans for an ambitious reset with Europe as the Prime Minister visits Germany. Keir Starmer has made his first bilateral trip as UK Prime Minister on a two-day visit to some of Europe's biggest powers. In the past few hours, we've seen him arrive in Paris, where he met with French President Emmanuel Macron at the Elysée ahead of the Paralympics opening ceremony. Earlier, the Prime Minister met with German Chancellor Olaf Scholz in Berlin. The pair announced they're working on a new bilateral treaty to deepen cooperation on areas such as security and the economy. Keir Starmer said it was part of a wider reset with Europe.
A new UK-Germany treaty, a once-in-a-generation chance to deliver for working people in Britain and in Germany. A new agreement, a testament to the depth and potential of our relationship, with deeper links on science, technology, development, people, business, culture, a boost to our trading relations.
Well, still with me are Rina Shah, political strategist, and Andrew Fisher, former Director of Policy for the Labour Party. Andrew, what did you make of this visit by Sir Keir Starmer? He clearly wants a reset of relationships with Europe, but what is that going to look like, given, as he said, we won't be going back on Brexit?
Well, it's a really good question. And look, he used the word reset a lot. This is all about vibes, really. This isn't about policy. There's no substantial kind of policy coming out of this. There's, the chance of an Anglo-German treaty. We don't really know what might be in it. 6 months down the line, maybe. But I think we need to understand, look, they've ruled out rejoining the single market. They've ruled out rejoining the customs union. They've ruled out freedom of movement, even a kind of youth mobility scheme, which the European Union is quite keen on, and polling suggests a lot of young people here in the UK would be very keen on. All of that is gone. And look, there is no country, no major economy within the boundaries of Europe, and I don't mean the EU, I mean Europe, that has not got either the single market or a customs union relationship with the European Union. We have put ourselves outside of all of that with our Brexit deal. That wasn't part of the referendum in 2016. It was whether we're a member of the European Union. Switzerland is outside the European Union. Norway's outside the European Union. Turkey's outside the European Union. They all either have the single market and freedom of movement or a customs union relationship. And unless we kind of get into that kind of territory, we're not going to see any sizable boost to the British economy. We're deluding ourselves if we are. There is a reason why every country in Europe has broken down these tariffs, has got these trading deals. It's because it benefits their economies and it's mutually beneficial. So we can be outside of the European Union. We don't have to be part of the political project, but we do have to have a trading relationship with our nearest neighbours. That's just the laws of trade all over the world. You trade with your nearby neighbours, and it is an act of self-sabotage that's come on the back of the banking crash. Years of austerity that have done damage to the British economy, and of course the cost of living crisis, the inflation spike we've seen, which all consolidated that damage. So if you want to actually have go for what Keir Starmer says is number one mission, the fastest growing economy in the G7, you're not going to get that unless you properly reset your relationship with Europe. And that's not about vibes or nice chats with Olaf Scholz, who's doing terribly in Germany, by the way. It's about having material change in our relationship with the European Union. That means either rejoining the customs union or the single market, or both.
Yeah, I'd love to know whether the word vibes came up in their chat. Somehow I doubt it very much. Rina, what about the US and the UK when it comes to trade? Because we know the US obviously did not want the UK to leave the European Union. And it was hoped that there'd be a new trade deal for the UK somewhere off the back of it. With a new UK Prime Minister and a different president coming in later on this year, the beginning of next year, do you think trade will shift between the US and the UK? Will it improve?
I don't have much confidence that it will because, again, we're so consumed with our election here, which is quite a ways away. I mean, I know we're under the 70-day mark, but we don't inaugurate a new president until January. So in essence, we have a lame duck president in Biden who is sitting there essentially rubber stamping things and is unable to really talk the talk on how we change any of our relationships globally or in talking about trade differently, too. We had two massive conventions of our parties this summer, and I was struck struck by how different they were in talking about the American worker, talking about how goods get to us, and talking about our consumption of daily commodities. A lot of why we have the inflationary policies we've seen Biden enact over the past 4 years is because of the tariffs during Trump's time. But let's not forget, we also survived a huge pandemic that had tremendous impact on our supply chain. So I think, in essence, we are focused when we talk about our nation's top leaders and our think tanks and institutions here that are mapping out policy for whatever this next administration will be, Republican or Democrat. They are mapping it out with an emphasis on Canada and Mexico. And so right now, I just don't see anything changing between our side of the pond and yours.
Yeah, Andrew, Keir Starmer talking about closer security also with Germany. Do you think in some ways he possibly might be trying to Trump-proof security coming up to the US election?
Perhaps. I mean, I think there's a lot of domestic play here in the UK at the moment over this. He's trying to say something tough on migration about better coordination. He's talked about smashing the criminal gangs that facilitate people moving across the channel. So a lot of it's about playing to that audience. And, it won't have much effect because the fact of the matter is people move across Europe. They've got the Schengen area within the European Union. And a very small proportion of those people, Germany takes far more asylum seekers than us, France does too. A small proportion want to come to the UK. That's going to continue to happen, and they're going to find a way. The only way to stop that is to provide safe and legal routes so that people can get here safely on refugee visas effectively, without having to make that perilous crossing on boats. But if you shut down all of that, people will try and find a different way. So I think it's, again, a bit of empty rhetoric and a kind of, playing to a domestic audience without really achieving much.
OK, let's move on and talk about drinking in airports, because the boss of Europe's largest low-cost airline is calling for a 2-drink limit at airports for passengers, saying it will help tackle a rise in disorder on flights. Ryanair CEO Michael O'Leary says violent outbursts are a weekly occurrence because of alcohol, and that flights to destinations like Greece and Ibiza were particularly bad. He warned the problem worsened when mixed with other substances. The body, which represents airports, insists there are measures in place to address the issue. Well, Andrew, what's your view on this? Because anyone who's been in a UK airport at any time of the day will know that whatever time of the day it is, there are people drinking, which 4, 5, 6 in the morning can sometimes be a bit surprising. Do you think there needs to be limitations put on the amount of alcohol you can have in an airport?
I think there probably should. But I'm slightly cynical about Michael O'Leary's motivation here, because I went on the Ryanair website today and had a look at their policy on board. And you can buy beers, wines, spirits, Prosecco, cocktails, pretty much any alcoholic drink you could want. And there's no limit. They don't have any limits on how many they'll serve you on the flight. So I think if it's
I don't think any airline has a limit, does it, though?
No, they don't. But then Michael O'Leary is the one speaking out against, alcohol, being drunk on planes. If he was that concerned, he'd put a 2-drink limit for his customers on the flights. I think what he wants to see is a limit at the airport so that customers on his flights drink more on his planes. And I don't think he really cares about his staff, particularly in that at all. Otherwise, he would have a 2-drink limit on his airline. And, he is a notoriously bad boss, a union-busting boss, who doesn't pay his staff particularly well, and who, unfortunately doesn't have the best practices in terms of openness as well, in terms of the costs of his flights. I mean, there's that notorious old joke of him walking into a bar and he says, "Can I have a pint of Guinness?" And the barman says, "That would be €1." And he says, €1? How on earth can you serve Guinness at that price? And the barman says, "Well, would you like a glass with that?" And that's how he does his airline. And so I am a bit cynical about it. I think there is a real issue, by the way, about people being drunk. And he's talked, I think, euphemistically about people also being on other substances. I think he means cocaine in that as well. And clearly there probably is an issue there as well, where the airport security does need to crack down a bit on that as well, because that really is a problem if people are, mixing drink and drugs ahead of flights. So there is a serious issue there. I just don't trust his motivations on this at all.
Well, Mr. O'Leary isn't here to defend himself against your cynicism, but there is a serious issue. And in fact, my family's been subjected to a very drunk passenger on a plane who screamed abuse at my 6-year-old daughter at the time, and it was awful. So I've seen it firsthand and experienced the very real ramifications. Rina, I don't know how much of an issue it is in the US in airports. Do you see it on a kind of daily basis as well?
Well, I've just landed this morning from a cross-country flight. I was on the West Coast, and it was the longest flight my little 2-year-old had taken, and it was quite interesting because you do worry when you're all in that metal tube condensed. You worry about the behavior of other passengers around you, and particularly in the rise of technology connecting us to everyone, we do worry about cameras being on and about young people essentially being able to capture any moment that somebody can have a weak mental health moment. Somebody may have mixed a prescription drug with alcohol. But I wouldn't say alcohol is fully at the center of the violent incidents we've seen in our American skies, for example. We have seen just a lack of respect in general. We've seen people act entitled to more. But I will say with this Ryanair CEO, it does seem that there is a desire for some of the blame to be shifted. If we want consistency, we need these airline CEOs to impose some limits also on what can happen in the sky. And that does mean they need to protect their staff, because staff in general are being responsible now for essentially being the police of the skies. And with so many being tightly packed in smaller seats on bigger and longer haul flights, we do have to worry about behavior. So I don't think it's a bad thing to police behavior. I don't think that's actually anti-capitalist at all. I think that's actually being part of a healthy and thriving society to look out for one another in the sky.
Okay, Rina, Andrew, for now, thank you. More from you in a few minutes. Around the world and across the UK, this is BBC News. Now, the summer of sport continues in Paris with the 2024 Paralympics officially kicking off today. Thousands have gathered to watch the opening ceremony in the heart of the French capital. It too is making a bit of history as the first Paralympic opening ceremony to be held outside a stadium. The so-called People's Parade travelled past some of the city's most iconic landmarks to La Concorde. About 4,400 athletes from around the world will take part in 22 sports. These games also see a record number of delegations and female athletes. More than 2 million tickets to the events have been sold already. Rina, Andrew, what are your thoughts on the Paralympics? Andrew, Team GB expected to perform well?
Yeah, I mean, I think we've actually got a really good record at the Paralympics. I mean, obviously, a number of people like Ellie Simmonds and others have become household names through the Paralympics. And it's great that there is this kind of nearly equal coverage to the Olympics now as it was. And, look, I've got a bit of a personal link to this because my great uncle, my nan's brother, competed for Britain in the Deaf Olympics, which predates the Paralympics, specifically for deaf people, and won bronze in table tennis in the I think late 50s or early 60s. He showed me his medal once before he died. So, it's really good that there are these opportunities for people to compete. And the standard now is incredible. I mean, these people are just as incredible and remarkable athletes as you see in the Olympics. And actually, what I find most interesting is not necessarily the sports we see every day, but then the sports that you don't see, like goalball and boccia, the sports that are specifically designed for people with disabilities that you don't see in the Olympics or on mainstream sports coverage normally. So it's really interesting as somebody who's a big fan of sports to see those new sports, if you like, or different sports shown on TV and watch those.
Yeah, okay. And Rina, as ever, Team US also expected to do well.
Indeed. And I think what I love the most here, though we have the Special Olympics here in the United States, is that this is a chance for people to see that equal treatment, especially for children. This gives them a lot to aspire to when they see people who have limits on their abilities. I'm the daughter of a disabled father who used a wheelchair in the later part of his life. And I always was very careful to explain to people that my dad could do everything except for run. And to me, he was not disabled. And proudly, he never displayed a handicap sticker on a car to get a closer spot at the grocery store, for example. But there are people who rightfully do need that. And what we see, though, in this Paralympic celebration, seeing the equality this year more so than other times, is a real encouragement and a real reframing of how we see others. Equality is more important than ever. Equity is more important than ever. And I think when we see people with challenges and see them overcome those odds and adversities, we see that anything is possible in life. So I'm so encouraged. I can't wait to watch more.
Okay, thank you. Okay, now it's time for you guys to talk about something that's caught your eye in the news over the past few days. It's time for the panel. Okay, so Andrew, to you first, and this is all around Oasis reforming and pricey hotel rooms. Tell us more.
Well, yeah, firstly, this is a kind of quarter of a century flashback to my teenage years when I was a bit of a fan of Oasis. I saw them in 1997, which is a bit more than 25 years ago now, isn't it? But yeah, the story today is that there are people who have hoping to buy tickets to the event, have booked hotel rooms in advance, and then being told their bookings are cancelled, and then see the same room online being touted by the same hotel for 3 times the price. So there was a guy in the iPaper today who had booked a hotel for £85 a night, and then he saw it, told it was cancelled, and then saw it online again for £340 a night. So we've clamped down in the UK. I think there is some laws on ticket touts, on reselling tickets and what you can do with that. I kind of wonder if we need the same regulation with hotels, because we've seen it around where the Champions League football has been hosted at certain stadiums around, not just in the UK, but around the world as well, where hotels do this. And for big gigs like the recent Taylor Swift gigs in the UK at Wembley Stadium, it happened again around there. So I do think there does need to be some regulation, because this is just profiteering out of a captive audience. And, you know, we're supposed to be against that. We're supposed to have laws that encourage competition and stop protect consumers. And that's what this is about. So it really spoils the enjoyment of what should be a fun thing. You know, if you like Oasis, then, you know, you should be able to go and see that and, you know, be able to book a hotel without having to take out a mortgage for it, really.
I'm not sure £300 is quite a mortgage, but yeah, I'm sure
there are
lots
others
of people
that will be even more extreme.
Yeah,
but, you know,
I'm sure lots of people
principle.
agree with
They
you.
shouldn't be tripling their prices. That's just profiteering.
Okay, just briefly, Andrew, so you're going to be trying to get tickets at the weekend when they go on sale?
I am. I'm still
you and millions of others
from the time, and we're going to try and relive our youth, I think, but probably in seats rather than standing this time.
Okay, Rina, I'm not going to even ask you if Oasis is big in the US, or even if you know who they are. So just tell us a bit about classical music, which is what you wanted to talk about.
Well, I must say I am an Oasis fan, but I am a bit more. I love all music. A culture that celebrates it greatly. My family's ancestrally from India, but I do love classical music. I grew up doing ballet, and classical music, and recent study shows, is linked to mood and to increasing sort of this happiness hormone. The brain waves have been studied when folks listen to classical music, and I think these studies are increasing now in frequency, and people are seeing how it can help with mood disorders such as depression. So here in the United States, particularly amongst millennial mothers like me, a lot of things are being marketed to us for wellness. And of course, we all know how big and how powerful the American pharmaceutical industry is. So if these kinds of things, free, low cost, no cost things such as listening to music, can help with our mental health and disorders, then I am all for it. I think the study was really encouraging because it did show that sincere link and good outcomes people have when they listen to classical music. As a big fan of art therapy as well, I hope more hospitals start to play classical music for patients too, as they are maybe infirm and not able to be physical. Maybe their mental health can improve even while they're in hospital, or even if you're not in hospital and you are a well person. Music can really help with our moods daily.
Thank you so much. We must leave it there. Rina, Andrew, thanks so much for being with us over the past few hours. That's it from me. Thanks for watching.